After about a month, the Future Redeem Challenge Run is finally over. This is my very first Future Redeem Challenge Run, and it was actually pretty interesting all the way up until the end, where it just got so annoying. But this is, can you beat Future Redeemed without unlocking anything? That means I can't use any Affinity Growth unlock kits, Gem unlock kits, Art unlock kits, or Accessory unlock kits. I have to use all of the available stuff that I have. So we have one of each slot already unlocked off rip. So that's all we get to use for throughout the entire game, and this will also be on hard mode. Now that's all there really is to explain off from the beginning, so let's get right into the run. The beginning of the game goes about how you'd expect, but since it is hard mode, fights take a little bit longer because enemies have more health. Now the game at this point is relatively similar to just a normal playthrough, since you don't really have anything to unlock and it's the very beginning of the game, so everything is just basic. I do take some time to grind a little bit, since we will need experience later on throughout the game, around mid games where it starts to get tough, because normally by then we would have a couple of things unlocked. So we need as much experience as we can get, because we will be over leveled for a lot of this, especially at the end of the run. And one more thing I did forget to mention is, for the affinity growth, we already have one bar unlocked, I guess. And each of the upgrades in there we are allowed to use, since we technically did not unlock them. Now the first real fight is against Nicole and Glimmer, which isn't really too hard. Here for the early game I play as A to kind of just keep up the healing, since it's typically better to control the healers yourself if you're worried about healing than letting the AI worry about it. But for the Nicole and Glimmer fight, as well as the Mobius fight right after, the strat for the early game is to just keep up the regenerate field as much as I can, and just every time my evasion art comes off a cooldown, I'll use that. So just keep the healing and evasion up, and we don't really have too much of an issue. Now after that, we get a cutscene with Niall and Matthew honing their Ouroboros skills, and then we fight Gondor. This fight we're scripted to lose. As you can see at the end, his health stops at a certain point before he uses his talent art, and it's funny because he uses his in the middle of me using mine, so the cutscenes kind of overlap each other, but this fight is scripted to lose. Now after the fight, once we get into the big field, I take some time to kind of see what I can do with the team right now and what upgrades I can give them. Not really much. I give Matthew an accessory that boosts accuracy at night by 20%. Not too much of a big deal, since we're very early in the game, the stats don't matter as much. And then I upgrade Nicole's Whirlwind, thinking it was Blitz Punch as a master art, but it still has relatively the same function. What I was worried about was just upgrading it so he can hold aggro easier, since Whirlwind does increase aggro drawn to himself. So as long as we keep the aggro off of Noah or off of Matthew and A, we are fine. Then almost with the rest of the affinity points that I have, I give this skill Initiative Effect Acceleration to Matthew, which starting a battle with an attack from the back grants the whole party fast recharge. So with this, I don't really use it much or really at all, because I forgot I had it almost immediately after I learned it, so it didn't really come too much into play, but it would have helped us, you know, keep up our recharge of our arts, since we need to be using arts as much as we can, dealing as much damage as we can, healing as much as we can, and all of that, since we will be struggling later on in the game. And while trying to grind out this incursion, I get targeted by a few more enemies than I would like, so I try to quick move away to disengage them and kind of just run outside of their detection radius. But for some reason, one Wolf targets me the entire time and chases me across the entire plane, the entire map. They just hold aggro on me the entire time, and then this happens. After that, I take some time to grind a little bit, hopefully to get to level 10 before I move on to the next objective. And while I was doing that, I remembered there was an affinity scene at the very beginning of Vermilion Woods that I could use to get some free TP to kind of upgrade my characters a bit early. And then after that, I grind some more, eventually getting up to level 10 before we go on and fix the elevator that takes us up to the Aurora Shelf. Once I get to the Aurora Shelf, I grind some more, and this is going to be a very big part. Most of the run is actually just me grinding to be high enough level to take on a lot of the bosses, and a lot of times, especially in the later game, I will be over leveled because I need to be. There's no way for me to increase my chances of winning other than leveling up and kind of just upgrading my weapons, which isn't really all that easy either, since I have almost nothing unlocked. So grinding is going to be the majority of this run. But after doing that, I checked my arts and learned Skyfoil. Now, I don't really use it throughout the run. I just keep Sword Mirage on her because of the fusion effect, where it grants evasion up and regenerate buff. So that regenerate buff is going to be very helpful. So for all of my characters, the master art that they have, it depends on what the fusion effect is. So every character, all 6 of the characters, all of their master arts are chosen based on what fusion effect that they give. Before grinding some more, we stop at the Napon Caravan at the rest spot to buy a couple of accessories. First, I buy the Circlet of Intellect, which increases healing by 20%, the healing stat. So obviously I want that for Glimmer, since she is the main healer, and she's actually who I'm going to be playing as for the majority of this run, because keeping up on the healing is going to be essential. That is the most important thing for this challenge run, is just making sure we have max healing at all times, especially at the end of the game. I keep talking about the end, but y'all are going to see why everything is so important leading up to that point. I also buy an Ice Headband, which increases crit rate by 20%. Naturally, as you can guess, I will be giving that to Rex. After that, I go to put on the Chunky Veggie Soup for the Combat Streak EX Plus effect to start what I like to call the Yggdrasil strat. I'll explain that when I get to there, but as I'm running around trying to find the comet carrot that I need, I grind a little bit more. And after beating up on some enemies and unique monsters, I decide to change out the accessories for my party to more fitting ones. For Matthew, I change out the Nacree choker for the Apprentice Van Braces. On A, I change out the white belt for the Bunny choker. And on Nicole, I change out the Vibrant Arm Ring for the Beast Fang necklace. And after that, I run around the Aurora Shelf for a bit more. Then I realize that the Comet Carrot is not in the Aurora Shelf, and it's actually in the Vermilion Woods. I check my Collectopedia and see that it is in the Vermilion Woods, and while I'm here, I fill in some of the slots just to get some extra affinity points for later. After I get the last Comet Carrot that I need, I make my way over to Bombastic Rotbart Jr. to beat up on him for some extra experience as well as some free affinity points. And after that, before I eventually start grinding again with the Combat Streak EX effect, I take some time to craft a couple gems that will be very helpful later on. Now, I only have enough to craft the second variant of each of these. I craft Empowered Combo 2, Steel Cleaver 2, Tailwind 2, and Analyze Weakness 2. I also wanted to craft Life-Saving Expertise 2, but I was lacking some Refreshing Piranhax meat for that, so I pinned that and went to go get that meat. And after I got the meat, I crafted that final gem, and then I finally went on to start the Yggdrasil strat. And now that we have what we need, we finally start the Yggdrasil strat. And what is the Yggdrasil strat? Go check out the homie's Yggdrasil video on it and he'll explain all of it. Alright, I'm sorry, it would be more convenient for me to explain it here, but I'm not trying to snipe my guy like that. He's the homie, so he deserves all the support that he can get. So go check out my guy's video, link in the description if you want to know the full strat. But essentially, I went from level 13 to level 16 in just a couple minutes. So it is a very helpful strategy, not only for the early in the game, I also found another spot around mid game that it also works. So definitely go check that out. But after we grind a little bit, get some more levels, we go on to the next scripted fight. Now we get to the Ratelli Rhinon, which is the fight that teaches us about unity combos. We get the first scripted unity combo and I immediately switch back to A, again just to keep up evasion and healing, and then we use the unity combo whenever we do have a chance and we get a launch. So the fight goes relatively smoothly and we get through it without too many issues. It just takes a while because again it's hard mode and enemies just have beefed up health bars, but we get through without really any issues. After that fight, I take some time to upgrade my party a little bit. I give Matthew energy boost so he can have power charge, which will be helpful. It won't make that big of a difference, but the little bit of extra damage he does is better than no extra damage. But after that, we get to the Glimmer section, which actually wasn't as difficult as I thought. I thought since it was hard mode and the enemies had more HP and higher attack damage output, I thought it would be a lot harder, but Glimmer actually held her own pretty well. But after that, we get to the infamous Mobius W fight. I think this is Mobius W. And here, the strat doesn't really change too much. We have Shulk now, which is helpful since we have another defender to keep aggro off of Matthew and A, as well as just another damage source and another break source. Since this is hard mode, debuffs and reactions and stuff like that are resisted more, so it is harder to get a break. So having an extra break source is very helpful as long as A has her topple recharged. But this fight goes about the same. Like I said, early game is all going to be relatively the same for combat since we don't really have our full party yet. But here I just again keep up evasion and healing as much as I can, and we will use chain attacks and unity pairings whenever we can. At least with unity pairings, I normally just use chain attacks before a big scary attack. But the first attempt didn't go so well because the Pharaonist used and A died, so I just gave up and tried again, but this time when he used I went into a chain attack and we actually got an overkill with this chain attack, even though we still had like a third of his health bar left. So chain attack damage is very scary sometimes. And after that, this is one of the best parts of the game. We get Rex. All right, Uncle Rex comes to save the day. He really likes our attitude, so he decided to help us out. Now here we finally have the full party, but I wasn't able to give Rex and Glimmer their accessories yet because we just went straight into the next fight from that cutscene. But here we actually put up quite a bit of a fight, but end up losing to a pretty disgusting combo. Alright, so the Pharaonist uses this Punish and Banished and then almost immediately uses Double Destruction, so everyone just gets destroyed besides Nicole and Shulk. But now that our two healers are dead, there's nothing we can do, so I retry, and this time I'm able to give Glimmer her Circlet of Intellect and Rex his Ice Headband. And I also went to equip the gems. But then this is where I realized I crafted the wrong gem for Glimmer. So I just have to suffer with this gem until I can craft the one I was supposed to, which was life-saving expertise. And now that I have everyone outfitted as I like, this fight actually isn't too much of a challenge. It just takes a long time. We weren't really ever close to dying just because Glimmer's healing is so good. The only time I'll really use Illusory Bloom is when it's a fusion art and like the master art is ready, and I'll use it as a fusion art to just get as much healing as possible. And this is my main source of healing, just using that fusion art, because not only do we get the AoE heal from the master art, we also get the heal on hit from Illusory Bloom. So it's just extra healing, and that's why I gave her the Circlet of Intellect, just to boost healing as much as I can and just to heal as much as I can. Since we take a lot of damage, we don't really have a way to heal it back, since A's regenerate field doesn't really heal all that much. So Glimmer, you have to rely on Glimmer for most of the run, which is why I decided to control her. As hard as it was to not play as Rex, alright, I had to be optimal here, and if I wanted to beat it, then I had to play as Glimmer. And after that fight and a couple of cutscenes, we get a tutorial for the Unity setup. Now, after that, I set the optimal Unity setup that I use even for my main file, my main save file, since this is probably the best pairings to go with. I pair Rex with Glimmer, Shulk with Nicole, and A with Matthew. And the effects for each of them are actually very good, and they actually give us effects that some of the skills in base game Xenoblade 3 has. So for Rex and Glimmer, they boost all allies crit rate by 15% and crit hit damage by 30%. Now this actually wasn't a skill until Masha released with Beaming Edge, which basically does the same thing and increases crit rate and crit damage. And the Protectors, Nicole and Shulk's Unity pairing, reduces damage to allies by 10% and boosts HP recovery by 10%. So this basically gives us Abundant Oceans, one of Nia's skills. And this last one, Mighty Link, has the effect of an accessory, the Shackle Ring in base game Xenoblade 3. It boosts effects of arts with each different art used within a set time. So every time you use an art, like a different art, the next art will be stronger. So say you use 3 separate arts and then a 4th art you haven't used yet, that art will be stronger based on the 3 arts you used before. I know it's a bit confusing, but I think Anel explained it in one of his videos, and you can also find it online. So if you're confused about that, it's not too hard to find information on. After that, we make our way to Colony 9, and we have to find Riku's hammer and some Ravamantine, so we can craft the Ether Slide to get up to the Ragmos Desolation. So we make our way back to the Aurora Shelf, find all of these Ignas to get the Ravamantine. And while I'm here, I do a bit of grinding before going back to Colony 9. And once we do that and find his hammer, we build the Ether Slide and get up to the Ragmos Desolation. Eventually, I grind all the way up to level 30 and then start the Agnes incursion right before Lake Ragwell. Now, sometime during this grinding, I actually went and created Life Blessing or Life-Saving Expertise 2 to put on both A and Glimmer, because we need as much healing as we can possibly get. I've taken Powered Combo off of A since I won't be playing as her anymore, and I give her Life-Saving Expertise. And now comes one of, and probably the most notorious parts of the entire challenge run. Now this Nile fight is infamous because not only was it very difficult for this challenge run, it's also difficult for a normal playthrough. If you go watching my playthrough, I struggled with this, and this was the first time I had to like actually go and grind in order to beat this fight. I think that's the first time ever in any Xenoblade game I've had to grind to beat a boss fight because I just didn't know what to do. But this fight is very, very scary, and debuffs in this game are very scary, probably more than any other game in the series. Debuffs here have their most prominence because they're most useful here. Not so much from your side, but from enemies. The debuffs that enemies can cast are very stupid. But as for Nile, her gimmick is putting you to sleep, alright? With Lightning Bash, she has a chance of putting you to sleep. And of all the debuffs and reactions in the game, for certain debuffs and reactions, you can mash out of it to shorten the duration. But for sleep, has the longest effect time out of any debuff or reaction in the entire game. So you could mash as fast as you possibly can and you'll still be asleep for like a good 15 seconds. It is abhorrent how long sleep lasts in this game, alright? And then that paired on top of a big hitter like Nile, you can see why this fight is very dangerous. So I use chain attacks quite a bit in this fight, not only just to get damage off since we are barely chipping away at her health bar, but also when she uses scary moves like Lightning Bash, for example. I'll pop a chain attack, or whenever we're low on HP, I'll pop a chain attack. And this fight took quite a long time, and I was actually so close to beating her. We were almost done, we had a little bit of a health bar left, and then this happens. But the second attempt actually goes a lot smoother than I expected, and it actually went pretty well. We got lucky. The only thing we really could have done is just get lucky with the timings of what art she's going to use and when, and if the debuffs were going to hit or not. Luckily, whenever she used Lightning Bash, not really too many of them got put to sleep. Maybe like a max of 2 people got put to sleep at one time. So a lot of the time we weren't getting put to sleep, which is what really destroyed us last time, because that's time I can't be healing, so we're taking more damage. So when she does inevitably use Bounding Rage, we would die off of it. But here, Glimmer almost never got put to sleep, so she was easily able to keep up the healing. So whenever she did use Bounding Ray, we were at full health and it didn't really hurt too much. And then near the end of the fight, we got her into a launch, but I was so worried about just finishing the fight and not fucking up that I forgot that I had unity combos I could have used. I could have used Rex and Glimmer's unity combo to finish her off there. I was hoping to get her in a chain attack to kind of get an overkill bonus, but it wasn't even halfway charged, so we just had to finish her off the normal way. But this fight actually didn't take as long as I expected. At first, I thought I'd get it over in just a single attempt, but after I died that first time, I was like, okay, I'll be here for a while. But surprisingly, it only took me one other attempt after that, which is kind of funny because I had an easier time with this fight here than I did on my first playthrough of the game back when Future Deem first dropped. But mind you, in my original playthrough, I was on normal mode and I already had stuff unlocked. So I'm surprised I had an easier time here than I did in the initial playthrough. But then again, I also wasn't really controlling Glimmer to keep up the healing, so that could have been a possibility why. After this very brutal fight, we have a much easier one. Next, we have to fight N as Matthew with the help of Nile. This one, just like the Gondor fight, we are also scripted to lose, so you don't have to worry about too much of anything here. But after that, we go back to Colony 9, and I do a couple of affinity scenes and open a relic to kind of just get a lot more AP, since we do have another difficult section coming up very soon. I also take the time to upgrade everybody's weapons, since this will be very helpful for later on in the game. I typically like to prioritize Glimmer and Rex here, at least for this challenge run. Glimmer, Rex, and A, because first I'm playing as Glimmer, so we need to keep up the healing as much as we can, and whatever tiny little bit of damage she can do will be helpful. Rex, because he is going to be our main damage dealer, and same with A, just to keep up healing. Now, I know upgrading the weapons doesn't really increase healing. All it really does is increase attack, crit rate, and defense, or block rate at least. And Glimmer and A, they're both healers, so they have lowest attack out of anybody. So boosting up their attack to almost be up to where the rest of the party is will be helpful to try to kind of equalize it, and just any little bit of damage boost we can get, we need, because we can't increase it through affinity growth or other accessories or gems. So we kind of just have to work with what we have here. And now after this, we have the 2 quests for Riku to push on the story. And first I decided to take on Nicole and Glimmer's Ouroboros side story, just to kind of get that out of the way, since it will be a lot tougher than the other one where we just have to go collect some materials. Now for this one, we fight the Hadal Tau, and I got bodied. Alright, we might as well be fighting one of the weaker characters in Xenoblade 1, because this blaze damage is absolutely insane. So Dino Storm already does a lot of damage. With that on top of the blaze damage that we're taking, there's no way we can survive. And I was wondering why I was having such a hard time, but then I realized I'm 6 levels lower than this Tau. So I change around some stuff on Glimmer and then retry the fight, and it goes about as you'd expect as the first attempt. We get bodied, so here's where I spend some time to grind. I spent some time grinding from level 31 all the way up to level 40, thinking for sure this will be it, right? This will let us just body the Tau. But no, we still get destroyed by Dino Storm on the first attempt, but we fight it again, and this time we actually get lucky with a lot of the combos. We get a lot of driver combos here. Our breaks start happening consistently, so we can get it launched, use some unity combos, and then we also get into a couple chain attacks and actually finish it off with a chain attack. Now comes the scariest part. This fight was arguably more annoying than the Nile fight. We have to fight Shulk and Rex as just Nicole and Glimmer alone, alright? And it doesn't help because they're almost around the same level that we are. And it's not that bad on paper, but Rex just does so much damage that he can just destroy Nicole easily, and Glimmer dies in a couple hits because she's so frail. So first our strat is to just focus on Rex, get Rex out of here first, since he is the biggest threat. But Rex and Shulk both like to start off with their Talon Arts off rip as soon as the battle opens, so that's just a big chunk of damage we're taking already. But that wouldn't be so bad if the bleed damage from Shulk's Slit Edge didn't do so much. Alright, this is what I was talking about earlier about the debuffs really actually being good in this game when they actually hit. Bleed and blaze damage do a lot, especially for us on just 2 characters who don't really have a whole lot of damage. So it takes a while to not only whittle their health down, but we also just take a lot of damage just over time from the bleed, the DOT bleed. So this fight is really tough, and not to mention that Shulk also sometimes will use Monado Lock, so he aggroes or like locks aggro onto himself, so we can't even attack Rex at all during this until the taunt wears off. And we need to get Rex out of here first, since he does a lot of damage, and once Shulk breaks Nicole, he can topple and launch Nicole. So that doesn't really help either, because that's a lot of damage Nicole is taking, and if he dies, Glimmer's dead in just a couple hits. So this fight takes a lot of patience, alright, and it was definitely testing my patience. Now after getting my ass handed to me a couple times by Rex and Shulk, I do grind a little bit more and change around some accessories on Nicole and Glimmer. And finally, we do end up beating Rex and Shulk. And then after that quest is done and we finally get to just focus on the easier one. And around here is when I took a break from the challenge run. Actually, I hadn't recorded anything for it for like 2 weeks. Not really too sure why. Maybe it was burnout, but I also just got focused on my second channel a lot, recording a ton of Splatoon videos and everything, going over cut and unused content Splatoon. So that's what I was doing in the meantime. But I came back to it a couple days ago and actually finished it out. Now, I did a lot of off-screen grinding here, and I found another spot to use the IG strat to grind up a lot of levels, and it actually does work a lot. It's like insane how much experience you can get from it. I'll probably put up on screen right here the location of where you can do it. But after that, we finally make our way to the Black Mountains, and this is the final stretch of the game. So we're around level 44 here. On our way up, we beat up on a fog rift, and then I kind of just grind in this incursion until I get up to level 45 and then make my way up the rest of the Black Mountains. But this strip right here is always notorious for it's so small, and they expect you to fight this Aspar and Arachno in this small little corridor right here, where we have, you know, a funny Xenoblade combat moment. And then once we actually get up to the location called Valak Mountain, I take an embarrassingly long time to fight through this incursion right here. There's no way to skip it. You kind of just have to fight the majority of the enemies here, since they're all bunched up in the middle, where you need to build the ether lift in order to get up to the rest of Valak Mountain to get to Prison Island. So I spend so long here that I actually gain a couple levels. I go from like level 45 to 48 here just from dying so much and retrying over and over and over again. I didn't have this much trouble in my original playthrough, again because I had damn near everyone's everything unlocked, but here we just have to use what we've had since the very beginning of the game. So I struggled with this incursion a lot because there's just so many enemies that gang up on you, so it's so easy to die from taking so much damage. But eventually we do get past here. I was short on ether cylinders, so I had to travel back to a couple areas to get some more ether cylinders, but we finally build the lift and we make it up to Valak Mountain. And then once we take the ether lift down to the lower part before we actually get to Prison Island, I take this time to grind up to around level 50. That's what the final boss is at. Elvis's second form is level 50, so I try to grind to be around the same level before finally going up to Prison Island. After grinding up a little bit more, we finally make it to the top of Prison Island, where the penultimate point of the game takes place. Here we take a second to finally use the rest of all of our EXP that we have to level up as much as we can to level 52, and then we start the very, very dreaded fight that I've been worried about the entire game, the end fight.
These fists just keep hitting harder.
Now there are many parts about this fight that I do not like. One part specifically, he likes to open the fight with Primal Chronos, which is an AoE attack. Not only does it knock you back, or not only does it blow down, it also grants bleed, which we already know by this point. Bleed damage is very scary since we can't really do anything about it. So the best thing we can do is survive the bleed damage and heal as much as we can. Just survive the bleed damage until it wears off. Everything else about this fight is actually not too bad. The only other time he'll grant bleed damage is when he uses Glimmering Swift Blade, which you have to be very, very close to him to even get hit by in the first place. So it's not too bad, but it does get a little concerning when everyone is all bunched up on him right there. So other than Primal Chronos and Glimmering Swiftblade, we don't really have to worry about bleed damage. So that is a big reason why I died in this fight a lot to begin with, is just all of the bleed damage that we can't really do anything about, because we take damage from bleed faster than Glimmer can even heal all of it away. So that is a very big issue. Not only that, a lot of his single target attacks also do a massive amount of damage, mainly Blood Moon and Swift Sword play. Typically a lot of the time he will be targeting Nicole since he has most of the aggro, and he'll one-shot Nicole a lot of the time with Blood Moon. And Swift Sword play is a multi-hit attack, but it targets one character, thankfully, because if that was AoE, this fight would have taken way longer. But Blood Moon is mainly his scariest attack, since it's single target and it's one big hit of damage that will normally one-shot in most cases. So I tried at this fight for about an hour, alright, and once we survive the first Primal Chronos and I could heal back up, it's not too scary. Mainly the strat for this fight is to just build up chain attacks and use those as often as I can. As soon as I build up a chain attack, I will use it just to get as much damage as I can off. And then of course, if we get him into a launch, I will use the Unity pairings. Now at first, before I retried this fight later on, I did go for Rex and Glimmer's Unity pairing because that increased crit rate and crit damage would be helpful, since everyone will just be dealing a little bit more damage. It's negligible, but at least it's there. And even if it makes the fight faster by a couple seconds, it's still a bit faster. But once he enrages, he'll start using scarier, stronger attacks. So he'll start using Swift Swordplay EX, which is just the original, but a lot more scarier, a lot harder. It hits a lot harder. And then he'll use Primal Chronos again. So if we survive the first one and make it halfway through the match where he gets enraged, he will use it again. And then that will usually kill me. And if it doesn't kill us, it gets us to very low HP. So he can just pick everyone off one by one, or just use Glimmering Swiftblade immediately after, just to stack on with the bleed damage. As soon as we get rid of it, he'll just put it right back on us, and then we will die to that. Chimera is also a very scary move, but it's not as bad as the others. It does do a decent amount of damage, but typically it won't really kill. Now, I was around the same level. I was level 52, he's 49, and we were still struggling a lot. All right, it already takes almost like 20 minutes to half an hour just to get him to like a third of his health bar. All right, and we can't have that. So I was getting bodied over and over and over again, and I just got fed up with this fight. So I decided to grind, and I used a grinding method that I used in my original playthrough. I don't have footage here of it since I also did this off camera, since it just takes way too long. But I would fight Fog Dweller Tall Stuff, a unique monster, level 55 unique monster, and then I would, every time I fought it, I would just finish it off in a chain attack and get as much overkill bonus as possible. And I went from like level 52 all the way up to like 58 in one fight. So I just kept doing that over and over again. Then I eventually ended up grinding to level 62, and I thought this would be it. All right, this would be more than enough. I'm over here 13 levels higher than he is. There's no way we can still lose this. But I just underestimate, you know, Monolith Soft and the way they design their combat systems. Yeah, this didn't really help at all. We kept dying to Primal Chronos over and over and over and over again. All right, and then eventually I decided to just optimally build up chain attacks. Okay, this whole challenge run, I didn't really have any specific builds for chain attacks, but I decided maybe I should make an optimal chain attack build. Maybe that will help out a little bit. So I ended up giving Matthew Battle Manual Volume 12, which when chosen increases damage ratio by 50 percentage points. That is going to be helpful because again, we need to be dealing as much damage as possible. Nicole, I gave Tactics Manual Volume 2, which is a completion bonus of reduces attacker and healer aggro by 100. I didn't really know what else to give him. A and Nicole aren't really that important for chain attacks, except for A, capping out the points limit at 99 since she is a healer, and toppling whenever we need her to. But other than that, as for the chain attack itself, she's not really essential, and neither is Nicole. I just really mainly focus on using everyone else. Glimmer, I end up giving Strategy Manual Volume 6. This has a heroic chain and completion bonus, but more so for the heroic chain. It prevents order from completing if it reaches 100% through character's action, letting you select another. So basically Melia's heroic chain from base game 3. And then Shulk, I give Battle Manual Volume 13, which is basically Ashura's, where it guarantees an amazing rating when character finishes an order, but they won't reactivate in the chain attack. And Rex, I have a manual on him that I've had for basically the whole game, where if he's first in line to attack, and increases TP by 150%. So that's a great way to build up TP. So later in the chain attacks, Rex has a lot of TP that we can just unload for big damage, and it was very helpful for grinding experience. Now, I try a couple more times with this chain attack setup, and we actually get pretty far, and it does make a big difference. But again, we still die to Primal Chronos. That the damage it deals is just so insane. That on top of the bleed, everything about Primal Chronos is just destined to make me fail. All right, the blowdown with AoE damage, so it hits everybody and it grants bleed. So it also, when we're blown down, we can't use arts because we're blown down and we have to wait for them to get back up. Then we got to run all the way back over to him before we can start using arts again. We have to charge our arts back up. So all of that time we're just taking unnecessary bleed damage, and we just keep dying to Primal Chronos over and over and over again. So eventually I stopped to go grind again, this time all the way up to level 67. I was thinking about just going up to level 70 just to be safe, but I didn't want to spend that much time. All right, I didn't want to take that long to grind, since I did want to get this challenge run done yesterday. I finished it yesterday. I wanted to get it done yesterday and then get it out today. So I didn't want to take that long to grind. So I figured if we don't beat him at level 67, I'll just go and grind up to 70. But let's see how far we get. And this is surprising, but I actually became smart and decided to use my brain. I know that's hard to imagine and believe, but trust me, I actually used the brain power that I was given. All right, and it actually worked. This time I used a chain attack as he was right before he used Primal Chronos, so we didn't take any bleed damage. We were healthy through the chain attack, and that actually saved us, because after that Primal Chronos, we actually didn't really struggle that much throughout the fight. That's what kept killing me this entire time, is Primal Chronos, because all of those different effects that it has. That's his scariest move to go up against, and since we mitigated that, we didn't really have an issue. So we finally beat N, and after that is just another scripted fight between N and Nael that took a little bit of time, but you know, also was scripted to lose that fight. You can beat it technically, but nothing really changes if you beat it or lose. So after that, we finally move on to the final boss fight against Alvis. how the entire game has been leading up to this fight against Alvis. Now, immediately as the fight starts, he likes to use Erasure Strike, which does massive amounts of damage. It's an AoE, it does about half the health bar to everybody, and is an instant forced topple. So I thought that was going to be scary and was kind of like the primal Chronos of this fight, but he only uses it at the very beginning, and I only had to fight him twice because of a mistake I made later on in this fight. But thank fuck this fight is nowhere near as difficult as the end fight, and it did not take anywhere near as long. That end fight was the hardest part of the entire challenge run. Alright, but here, this fight is actually not bad at all. He can still cast bleed, but nowhere near as much as N, so this actually isn't too much of an issue. The one thing though that was kind of annoying is that he can use Monado speed, which makes him impervious to all damage, so he's immune to all damage for a long amount of time. So we're kind of just sitting there waiting for it to wear off so we can finally deal damage again. And during this time I just try to keep up the attack upfield from flare aria, not only just to keep that field active so when it does go down we can just keep dealing as much damage, but also to build my talent art, since that is also another form of healing that is very helpful for us. But other than that, the first phase actually goes by pretty quickly and it's not even that hard. It's the second phase where we start to run into a little bit of trouble. Now the second phase also isn't really that tough, except for penetrating judgment can one-shot sometimes. It doesn't happen often, but it does one-shot Rex and Nicole a couple times, and for some reason he just kept targeting Niall, so apparently Niall just does a shit ton more damage more than everyone, which makes sense since she has her full affinity growth unlock. She also has all of the gem slots open with, I think, X gems, or whatever the highest level, I think level 5 gems is the highest you can go in Future Redeemed. She has all of those, she has all her arts, she's got all her skills, gems, accessories, everything, so she's doing way more damage than we ever can. But the scariest part is when Alvis uses vision mode. Now I only had fought Alvis about twice, the first time on my very first playthrough, and then I refought him again once I 100%ed the game just to fight him and see how much easier it was, but I didn't really pay too much attention to his attacks. But when he uses vision mode, this is where it gets scary, because after vision mode he comes down with a perfected
Monado, basta!
and that absolutely obliterates everybody except Niall, funnily enough. Niall's the only one who survived, but this is massive damage. I don't know if this works like Bide, like it does in Pokemon, where he takes all the damage from us. So like say we attack him and he takes all that collective damage and puts it into the perfected Monado Buster. But that attack is very scary. I didn't know about that attack. Well, I forgot about it since it's been a while since I last played Future Redeemed, or at least fought Alvis before doing this challenge run. So I was not expecting that at all. It completely obliterated all of us. It was a bit annoying that I had to take the time to get all the way back there again, but on our second attempt he only used it twice, and both times I just used a chain attack to go through it, so that wasn't very scary. But finally, after about a month and a half, I finally beat this challenge run, and we did end up beating Alvis. There it is. So it is possible to beat Future Redeemed without unlocking anything on hard mode. It definitely was not easy, but I did have a fun time doing it. I have another challenge run I'm about halfway through right now, actually, that I actually started working on before this one. It's a Xenosaga 2 challenge run. I'm not going to spoil what it is yet. Y'all are just going to have to wait till that one comes out. I'm probably going to start working on that one now that this one is done. I actually was working on that one first. I got about halfway through, and then I started working on this one. So it's long overdue for that Saga 2 challenge run. And then when I beat Saga 3, I'm going to do one for that. But this one took a while to do, and I'm glad that it's finally over. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. My very first challenge run for Future Redeemed, and I think the first challenge run on YouTube for Future Redeemed. I haven't seen anything about that. Not too many people do challenge runs for the Xenoblade games, so I wanted to be the one to do them. So I want to be like the Xenoblade challenge run guy, since I already have quite a bit of other ones. But hopefully y'all enjoyed this one, and now I can go and work on covering the cut and unused content for the other Xenoblade games. Since I did make one on Xenoblade 3, I'm gonna cover the other games. So I got some content coming. I'm gonna start trying to upload to this channel more again. I kind of abandoned this one to work on my second channel, but I miss y'all and I miss Xenoblade, so I gotta get this channel back up and running. But that's really about it. So see you next mission to play some goddamn Xenoblade.